Okay, this video is about using web mapping services from within Quantum GIS. We're going to be doing work within Warwickshire, so let's put in a search for Warwickshire GIS, and that brings us through to the Warwickshire County Council GIS site. They're a great bunch of people, have a whole range of different data and ways of visualising it, from their interactive compass to the standard services that they've used to release their information. So these are Open Geospatial Consortium standard services, so Web Mapping Service, Web Feature Service, Tile Map, Web Map Tile Services. We're primarily interested in the Web Map service, so we can take the URL and copy it. But before we do anything with that, we want to find out what the license this data is under. Now, there are three primary licenses here. That the Warwickshire County Council data is available under an Open Government Licence version 2. There are historic maps that come from Landmark, which I'm not particularly happy with, because essentially Landmark have taken the out of copyright Ordnance Survey data, digitised it or scanned it, then georeferenced it, and then said, oh, this is now new data, so we'll sell it again. Anyway. And then there's Ordnance Survey data, some of which will be open within limits. You need to check the licenses, but most of it is under Crown copyright. So the Open Government Licence is great. It's a permissive licence. You are allowed to copy, publish, distribute and transmit the information. Great. You're allowed to adapt the information. Now that's critical, because we're deriving content from this information. And then you're allowed to exploit it commercially and non-commercially. Fabulous. It's a permissive licence. What they do ask for is attribution. You'll attribute it with the following statement: contains public sector information licensed under the Open Government Licence version 2. Fabulous stuff. Right, okay, so we've got our data. We know where it's coming from, we know what licence it's under, and that's all good. So let's go back to Quantum GIS. So in QGIS, what we want to do is open up a web mapping service. So let's just edit that setting so I can show you what I prepared earlier. We've given it the URL, just to show it's the same URL. I will paste in what we copied, so it is the same. We've given it a name. There's no username and password, so we just leave it at that, because it's an open framework. We can then click on connect, and what that's doing is essentially going, at this URL, we think there's some data. So let's go to that URL and say, what data do you have? And the server picks up that message and goes, we've got all of this data, and sends that back to you. And this is the list of all of the data that server thinks it has. So let's have a look at it. Right. We have the, in fact, let's order it by aerial photography. Right. So here we are. So here is the aerial photography. So we're primarily interested in 2013 aerial photography. But while we're there, we may as well have a quick look at the CR, which is a Colour Infra-red. We'll add that in. But also while we're there, we'll have a look at the NDVI. We'll add that in. Now we'll turn these two off. Oh, I'll close that, and then we'll turn these two off. And we'll change the order around. Okay. Right. So this is our aerial photograph, and what we'll do is we'll change the projection and put it into a UK projection. Brilliant. That now looks slightly elongated, but when we get in, you'll see how lovely it is. Right, here we are. So we can pan around. Find an urban area, just there will do. Right, brilliant. So as you can see here, there's a runway, variety of things, and loads of houses, loads of streets. And as we get in, we can just see how absolutely stunning this data is. So that's great. So it is actually a fabulous, fabulous data set. I just can't get over how excellent it is. So if we can use that for a variety of different things, and we will be looking into the digitising in a bit. But also, while we're here, we've got to look at this colour infrared data. So this was collected at the same time. Oh, by the way, all of this is also rectified. That means it's been corrected for terrain distortion, so you can actually start to take metric measurements out of it. But it was also taken with a 4-band camera. Camera that was collecting green, blue, red, and near infrared. Now, normally when you see these things, like the things you see in Google Maps and Google Earth, you just see the red, green, and blue, the kind of bands that you get from your camera. Okay, comes out something like this. Here, what we've done is they've put the colour infrared. So that means that they've taken they've got rid of the blue band, they've placed the green band in the place of the blue, they've taken the red band in place of the the green, and then they've put the colour infrared in place of the red. And colour infrared is particularly sensitive to vegetation. So when the infrared hits vegetation, it has a very high reflectance. And so as the infrared band has been matched to the red gun in your monitor, it all looks very, very red whenever there is vegetation. So these trees come out red, all of these fields with crop in them come out red. It all becomes really rather exciting. So if we go into, I believe this actually is Tizo. Yeah, so you see the red trees, you see bits of a rig and furrow. There we are. But from that, you can create a thing called an NDVI, which is Normalized Difference Vegetation Index. That gives you an indication of what's vegetation and what isn't. So you get a value of between +1 and -1. Where your +1, which are these kind of, sorry, you've got to bear with me, I'm colourblind, these greeny, bluey bits here are saying we're all vegetation. We're still vegetation-ish, and these bits here are going, we are absolutely nothing like vegetation. And so this is looking at the spectral response elements within the data and looking at how different objects react to different areas of electromagnetic spectrum. So you can see here that using NDVI, you can quickly distinguish between urban areas, proper rural areas, and areas which don't have any vegetation on them, which is fantastic. But anyway, that's an aside. The whole point of this demonstration was to show you how to get a web mapping service into QGIS. All right.